Okay, so let me explain what's going on with this exercise, and it'll kind of make the portrait make sense. And I want to say thank you to Maggie and Evan for getting this set up, and if I've left anybody out, I'm sorry. Just thank you so much for doing this for us. This is rubber cement, and it's been thinned down with a rubber cement thinner, so it's kind of liquidy, and it kind of has a consistency of like a booger. I also have a bunch of these brushes, and you're going to notice that every single one of them has like a red tip on it, because once you dip them in the rubber cement, they are ruined. They're trash. So do me a favor, don't use any other brushes for this project except for the ones that have a red tip on them. We also have rubber cement erasers. I'll show you how to use those because they're kind of cool. And in this bucket, I put some watercolor paper for you guys to use for exercise. So I'm going to grab myself a piece of this lovely paper. Eventually, you're also going to need a bucket of water, and so I had student write every single person's name on a bucket of water, and when you're done with these today, don't leave them out in the room or put them by the sink. These should be able to fit directly into your cubby or cubby somewhere on the shelf. I'll explain that in a little bit. So, as you can see, the new cups you guys have very easily fit into your cubby, so just find a place, maybe just a cubby that no one's using, and maybe put a row of them across or something like that. We'll figure it out. But just please don't leave these by the sink. These are yours. Don't leave them out. And then eventually we also have some ink. We have L, which stands for light, M, which stands for medium. We just watered them down already. And D, which stands for dark. This is India ink. If it gets on your clothes, it will stain your clothes, so be careful. And then I've got a whole bunch of brushes here. In a variety of different sizes. This is a lovely bamboo, my absolute favorite. And then, of course, these lovely watercolor sable brushes that are great for if you're doing a lot of detail work, small details. So, to get started, on a piece of paper, think about sketching out some kind of design of some sort. And really, the idea behind this is, again, is it should be something that has a whole lot of shapes associated with it. And I want you to kind of imagine some of the shapes are going to be white, some are going to be a light gray, and some are going to be medium, and some are going to be black or dark, depending on how you think about that. I'm just kind of randomly putting this together. I have no idea what I'm doing. Thinking a little bit about rule of thirds as I go, but other than that, I have no preconceived notions of what's going into this, and this is what I want to talk to you about. If you take some rubber cement, the goo, by the way, this stuff I've noticed, if you put it in like one of those plastic containers, I don't know if it would work with this one, but I've put it in like other kinds of plastic containers and then walked away and have come back like 45 minutes later, or I'm using it and I lift it up and the bottom's gone. This stuff will actually eat away at plastic, I've noticed in some cases, so that's why we're using the lovely, what is this, chicken and rice noodles dinner glass container, because it works so well for this. So I'm going to grab a brush that has a red tip, and oh yeah, that's the good stuff. And again, I'm not quite sure what my color combo is going to be for this, but what I noticed is that if you just kind of hang out in the air for a while, this stuff has a tendency to dry out. You really want to kind of apply it as soon as possible. So if I grab some on here, oop, okay, there's a little drop right there. I think I'm just going to kind of keep going with that. And you see it, you have to really kind of get used to it. This is why I'm asking you to do this before you start adding rubber cement to your final portrait. You can always easily remove the rubber cement, so if it ends up somewhere where you don't want it to be, it's actually quite easy to take off, but you have to wait for it to dry, and it's kind of annoying. So I just recommend just kind of getting used to it, learning its limitations, learning how to make it work for you. Obviously, you can brush it on, but you have to learn, again, how to make it work. And again, if it dries out too much as you're brushing it on, it needs to really absorb into the paper for it to do what it's supposed to do, which is essentially to provide a resist, so that when I paint inks on here, I don't see, oh, dots really work well for this. I don't see any of, oops, the, I don't want the ink absorbing into the paper. So again, anywhere where I'm painting this on, it's obviously going to become white because that's the color of the paper. So whatever color this is, so if I painted it gray all over this and then put this on, like a light gray, then this would basically be protecting the light gray. So I want you to think it's not just for white areas, it's for anything that you have an underlayer color. Another obvious thing, your paper has to be dry for this to work. So if you just painted a fresh coat of paint on, unfortunately you're kind of out of luck. You gotta wait for this to dry before you can apply the next coat of rubber cement. And notice, by the way, obviously, when I painted or when I drew the pencil lines on, they were very light. That was intentional because I don't want to see those when I'm all done. So let me go ahead and keep going with this. Okay, so I've got this lovely dry now, relatively dry image. And by the way, obviously when you're not using this stuff, make sure the lid stays on because it does evaporate and just becomes like, again, a big booger. So now it's time to have some fun with this. I'm going to put this on something behind it just so I don't make a huge mess on the table. Don't want to get India ink on my clothes either. And typically, what I find is if you're going to use values on the piece, which obviously in this case you are, I recommend working from light to dark. So again, anywhere that I've applied the rubber cement, it's going to stay white, assuming the rubber cement has soaked in efficiently or effectively. So I'm going to grab the lightest value that I have. You know, and honestly, like if you did this correctly, you don't really even need to come in with like a tiny little brush and I'm just going to come in with my light gray and I'm going to swipe. And you can already see it's spreading out where I applied the rubber cement, which is kind of cool. So I'm not really doing much more than that right now. The only problem with this is that it's a waiting game. While this is drying now, I can't really go back in and apply rubber cement to any other areas. I have to wait for this to dry. So what I recommend is that you have several different things going on at the same time. Don't just sit there and watch this dry. That's just a complete waste of your time. Unfortunately, rubbers, like, don't bother coming back in either with a hairdryer or anything like that. That's also a waste of time in my opinion. Just let this dry, give it, you know, about an hour or so. It'll be dry, and then you can go back and apply the next layer of rubber cement. So anywhere now, for the next layer that you want it to be gray, that's where you're going to be applying it. And I'm just going to clean my brush off with a little bit of water here. And wait, and that is all with this one. Okay, so it's been about an hour and the paper's nice and dry, and the ink's nice and dry too. Just to show you before I start adding more to this, let me just show you how cool this stuff is. So if I don't want to do it now, but I'm just going to show you, and I'll have to add something to it. If I take a rubber eraser now and I just go over that, it just completely removes that rubber cement ink right there. And now that's paper is completely white. So you can already see the applications for this. So now if I'm going to just go ahead and decide, you don't have to do this obviously now. Don't remove all the rubber cement now. But if I go over this whole space, what I'm basically telling I'm not really telling anybody anything, but what I'm setting this up for is that if I go over this now, this outside portion with a darker color ink, this rubber cement is going to create a resist then in the space I have left and prevent the ink from soaking in there. So hopefully you can see some applications for this already. I'm just gonna play around with a few different designs. And that's basically what I want you to do, is create your own kind of design and just kind of play and see what the possibilities are for this. Not quite sure what I'm making here. Just trying to have a little bit of fun.